Welcome back to Aviation Hub. In today's video, we're diving into some important updates from the aviation world, including major developments at United Airlines, the latest on the Boeing 737 MAX legal case, and what EVA Air is planning for its fleet. Let's begin with United Airlines, which is currently facing some serious operational challenges, especially at its Newark Liberty Hub. If you're wondering what's going on, well, United is dealing with a combination of revenue, drops, and increasing operational costs. That's already tough, but it gets worse because the airline is being forced to cut back on capacity at Newark, one of its most crucial hubs in the U.S. Now, on the surface, some people thought the FAA's decision to limit flights at Newark was actually a good thing. It would reduce congestion and give the airport a bit of breathing space. But for United, this comes at a cost. Fewer flights mean less revenue, and unfortunately, that affects their bottom line directly. Even though the move is meant to help long-term stability, in the short term it hurts financially. But United doesn't have much choice. Continuing at previous flight levels simply wasn't sustainable anymore. One of the reasons this is such a big issue is because of how congested Newark has become. United depends heavily on this hub, and pulling back here risks losing market share. Other airports in the U.S. are also feeling the pressure, so simply shifting operations isn't an easy solution. United does have one advantage, though. Unlike some other global carriers, it has a big and flexible fleet. This allows them to swap out aircraft as needed, adjusting to demand and operational conditions more easily. Bigger planes may be deployed on certain routes to offset the drop in the number of flights. But even with this flexibility, United knows that it has to act quickly and smartly. Newark is too important to let go. So the airline is now focusing on understanding the root causes of these issues and trying to fix them before things get worse. To put things in perspective, just in early May, United had to cancel about 10% of its flights out of Newark. That's around 35 flights a day out of a total of a little over 300. That's not a small number, and the impact is significant. The problem seems to be tied to ongoing technology issues. Systems that air traffic controllers rely on haven't been functioning reliably. When those systems don't work properly, the number of flights that can safely operate is reduced. United CEO Scott Kirby confirmed that staff just can't keep up with a full schedule given the current circumstances. This is something they need to fix urgently. Kirby also said that Newark is in a very unique situation. It simply cannot handle the number of flights that were being scheduled, not just for the next few weeks, but for several months into the future. And this isn't a new problem. Staffing shortages, especially among air traffic controllers, have been an ongoing issue. Airlines have been warning the government about this for years. United has repeatedly asked the government to use its authority to limit flights at key airports like Newark until these staffing and technology issues are resolved. That way, at least operations could continue more smoothly without constant disruption. For now, United is making internal adjustments. That includes using different types of planes, possibly larger aircraft, to make up for the reduced number of flights. But the bigger concern is how this all fits into the broader picture of air travel in the U.S. and whether these kinds of problems will keep growing if something isn't done. Moving on to Boeing and the 737 MAX situation, there's been a major update that's making headlines. Boeing has just reached an agreement with the U.S. Department of Justice to avoid further prosecution related to the two deadly 737 MAX crashes that happened in 2018 and 2019. If you remember, those two incidents claimed the lives of 346 people and led to one of the biggest scandals in modern aviation history. The agreement allows Boeing to avoid going to trial and being labeled a felon. For some, this is frustrating and disappointing. For others, it's seen as a necessary step toward moving forward. The Justice Department said the agreement serves the public interest and holds Boeing accountable, while still allowing the company to function and recover. Now, this doesn't mean Boeing gets off the hook entirely. The company still has to pay large sums of money, including compensation for victims' families, compliance costs, and criminal fines. Still, some families and their lawyers believe this isn't enough. They feel that Boeing had cut corners on safety and rushed the 737 MAX into production without fully addressing critical design flaws. At the time of the crashes, Boeing had initially placed the blame on pilots, but over time, it became clear that the real issues were rooted in the aircraft's design. especially the now infamous MCAS system. This was a major turning point, not just for Boeing, but for the entire aviation industry. The crashes led to the MAX being grounded globally for nearly 2 years and forced the company to overhaul its safety protocols and quality control practices. One of the lawyers representing the victims' families, Mark Lindquist, said that the evidence was overwhelming. He believes that Boeing basically confessed through its past actions and that this plea agreement isn't about the strength of the legal case. It's about other considerations like avoiding further public fallout. For the families involved, this is understandably painful. They wanted a trial to expose the full extent of the company's responsibility. Still, Boeing says this agreement helps them acknowledge their mistakes while trying to rebuild trust, not just with regulators, but with the public and their customers. That won't be easy, but it's the only path forward for a company that was once seen as the gold standard in aircraft manufacturing. Finally, let's talk about EVA Air, a Taiwanese airline that's making strategic changes to its fleet. Right. Now, EVA Air has 33 Boeing 777 aircraft, and they've been a key part of the airline's long-haul operations. Most of these planes are still relatively young, averaging about 12 years. But a few are older, around 17 or 18 years, and the airline is now starting to make decisions about what to do with them. Instead of retiring them completely, EVA Air plans to convert 3 of these passenger jets into freighters. This is part of a growing trend in the industry where older passenger planes are being turned into cargo aircraft to extend their service life. EVA Air already has 9 dedicated Boeing 777 freighters, and with these conversions, that number will grow to 12. This move makes a lot of sense. The demand for air cargo has been rising, and airlines are looking for ways to take advantage of that. By converting older jets instead of retiring them outright, EVA Air can keep using its existing assets while also boosting its cargo capacity. This is not only efficient, but also cost-effective. This kind of strategy also shows how airlines are thinking long-term. Instead of simply phasing out older planes, they're looking for ways to adapt and repurpose them. And with more third-party companies now specializing in freighter conversions, this trend is only expected to grow in the coming years. So that wraps up today's update. We looked at United's tough situation at Newark, Boeing's legal agreement over the 737 MAX tragedies, and EVA Air's shift towards strengthening its cargo division. The aviation industry is constantly evolving, and stories like these show just how many layers there are to running a modern airline. Thanks a lot for tuning in. If you enjoyed the video or learned something new, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Stay safe, take care, and I'll see you in the next one.